Alright, so now we're going to use the G2 faucet installation method. The G2 faucet is simply an accessory faucet made by Chanson, and its sole purpose is to prevent having to put any hoses or diverters onto your main faucet. It will require a hole being drilled either in the top of your sink or your countertop unless you have something there pre-existing, like for example a soap pump that you're willing to remove and use that hole for the G2 faucet. If you don't, and you're going to have a handyman or a plumber drill that hole for you, the size hole that's going to be needed is at least a 5/8 inch hole, but ideally they'll just drill the standard faucet hole size, which is 1 3/8. So it'll either be a small hole just to accommodate the shaft, or it'll be a full-size faucet hole at 1 3/8. Either way, it will work. If it's a small hole, you're just going to insert the G2 right into the hole. That simply, and the install from the top is almost done. You'll go underneath and connect the bolts, as we'll show you in a second. If you have the larger hole, then we've included this ring inside the kit which would slip on to the shaft, which will cover the larger size hole, and that would be for a standard faucet hole. Essentially, the G2 connects very simply. From the bottom, well, we'll just cover it like this first. From the bottom, so it'll slip into the hole. You can't really see under the sink, so I'll just show you from the top how to make the connection. You're going to see inside the kit, you're going to have a gray washer, and again, we change parts from time to time, so the nut that secures this from underneath might not look like this gray washer. It might be something as simple as just a regular sized nut. But the bottom line is, once this is in place, you're going to want to tighten the nut from the bottom, and that's what holds and clamps the faucet in. So this nut is clamped in place already. The size tubing that we use for this installation is a 3/8 hard tubing. If you order the G2 faucet, the tubing will come with it. All you do is slip this nut over the tubing, and there's two sides to the nut. There's a side where you can see threads, and there's a side where the collar is thick. The threaded side faces upward as you're slipping it over the faucet. So the threads will be facing upward. All you have to do now is slip this hose, and you'll see the tip has a little barb over it. You'll slip this up and over the barb. Now remember, you'll be on your back under the sink pushing upwards at this point, because this is installed and you're going to be pushing it up from underneath. Now all you have to do is put this nut on, tighten it down as tight as you can get it by hand, and then you'll take a wrench from underneath and tighten it as snug as you can get it. Now you have a solid connection going from your pre-filtration unit or direct from the cold shutoff line under the sink right up to your Miracle Max. Now I'm going to pull this hose off so we can finish the demonstration here. So keep in mind, having this makes it extremely easy to connect a C3 pre-filter, a Chanson Ultra filter, or a Chanson Nano filter. All of them can be connected with this in place. Once that connection is made from the bottom, you're going to have two hose pieces that look just like this. The one on the bottom is feeding the water up and over to your ionizer. The one on the top is the return coming back from the ionizer going in, and here is where the acid water comes out of this spigot. So we'll just drop this into place, and in the last segment we had already hooked up our hoses to the ionizer. We're not going to do it again in this segment. If you need to, you can go back to the last chapter and see how we hooked up everything underneath the ionizer. Now all we have to do is plug in the right hose to the right hose here. And so our shorter hose is the acid line, which will go to the top hose here. Remember, with quick connect fittings, you want to push them in all the way. And our supply water goes to the bottom hose. Now, for the demonstration purposes, these hoses are left long, but I want you to see how nice and neat this looks. If it's in your kitchen, you don't need any hoses right here. You can basically turn this valve open and leave the water on at all times. There's pressure going to the ionizer, and to turn it on, you simply touch the power button once or twice, depending on whether the screen's gone into sleep mode or not. This is also a very nice way to protect your house from leaks and floods. When you leave for a couple days, you could simply turn this lever off, and now no pressured water is going to the ionizer. The G2 faucet is a fantastic accessory product. But once it's in place like this, believe it or not, your install is pretty much done at this point, and you're ready to start using the ionizer. Thanks for joining us for this segment. Now on to the next one.